Hey guys, welcome back. Today we are going to be talking about Neville Goddard. Now, maybe you've heard of him, maybe you haven't. If you have been deep diving into manifestation, there's a good chance that you've heard of him somewhere along the way. Now, whether or not you've actually started studying him, that's a totally different thing. I personally have followed YouTubers that are followers or students of his teachings and really follow his practices is what I was trying to say, but teaching through their own experiences. So I myself have never sat down and read what he has to say himself. I've tried to listen to other people and just I don't know, the timing was just never there for me. It just wasn't quite aligned yet. Well, the day has come. I have finally ordered the complete Neville Goddard collection, and it's just so straightforward and simple. When I read this, it just makes sense. It's very clear cut. I love it. And so what I am going to be doing is sharing that with you. Now, if you've been following me, I've been talking a lot about my theories and things I'm experimenting with probably over the past several months now, and that's kind of the way I like to live my life, is that I like to experiment and try and learn things on my own, and then once I think I have pretty solid conclusions and I want to give context to them and see what the experts have to say, I go and do that, and then I get excited about the things that I got right, and then I also learn where all those little missing pieces and those loose ends get tied up for me. So here I am studying Neville Goddard, and I just love it so much that I really want to spend, honestly, probably several videos going over and breaking down his teachings in a way that's going to make sense to you, that's easier to digest. I've tested it on normies that have never heard of manifestation in their life, and they have straight up told me, wow, that made a lot of sense to me, and I feel like I wouldn't be able to understand it by myself. So I'm very excited because this is my favorite thing to do, and we're gonna jump on into it. Let's get started. Okay, so before I read a quote here, the big thing that Neville Goddard teaches is that, I don't know how to say it quite, but that he says you have to assume the state of already having the thing that you desire, and that everything else, methods, whatever, you just need to assume the state of having it and feel successful in that and able to relax in that knowing, and it's yours. And it's very simplistic, but I know in my journey that it's only been very recently that I've been able to actually understand what that is and have the patience and trust within myself to actually do so. So I am going to read his own personal story. He says, he's talking of his teacher who taught him about all of this. You must imagine yourself right into the state of your fulfilled desire and fall asleep viewing the world from Barbados, because Neville was saying that he really wanted to spend his holiday, winter holiday in Barbados, but he literally didn't even have a nickel to his name. So his teacher says this to him. He says, and then Neville goes on to say, the world which we describe from observation must be as we describe it relative to ourselves. Our imagination connects us with the state desired, but we must use imagination masterfully, not as an onlooker thinking of the end, but as a partaker thinking from the end. So I'm going to stop right there. So he's saying that our imagination is what gets us into that state, but that we can misuse or use our imagination in a way that does not get us to that end state by looking kind of from the outside in with longing, versus really feeling yourself in that state. So if his dream is to be laying on a beach in Barbados, then misuse of the imagination would be to imagine the scene and be like, oh, I really wish I was there, that would just be so great, and feeling like you're probably not going to get it or you don't have it right now, like that kind of thing. Whereas you want to feel like you're already laying on the beach. You want to, okay, what does it feel like? Because this is a place, when you read further, that he has visited. His father had a house there. His family had a home. So he is familiar with the island. So it's like, you know what your favorite vacation spot feels like. So get into that feeling and just like be fine feeling that and not actually needing to be there. But that's like, I'm getting ahead of myself now. Okay, so we must actually be there in imagination. If we do this, our subjective experience will be realized objectively. This is not mere fancy, he said, but a truth you can prove by experience. His appeal to enter into the wish fulfilled was the secret of thinking from the end. Every state is already there as mere possibility, as long as you think of it, but is overpoweringly real when you think from it. Meaning, again, you can think of going to the beach. It's like an outside thing, but if you think from the perspective of the person already at the beach, that is the key. Thinking from the end is the way of Christ. Now, I actually still don't know a whole ton about him as a person, him being Neville Goddard, but I know that, like, he lived a bit ago. I want to say, like, in the early 1900s to the 1950s, I don't know. I don't actually know. But I will say that he does not, his Christian terminology is not that of the modern day organized religion that you would think of. Now he is talking about everything is an energy. And so I've talked about this in my Florence Scovel Shin video, because she was similar in that Christ is an energy. This is not some man that he's talking about. So he's talking about, basically, when he talks about the Christ energy within you, is the God power that a human has. Yeah, that's the simplest way that I can think to explain it. So he says, okay, I began right then and there fixing my thoughts beyond the limits of sense, the fact that he was not in Barbados, and beyond that aspect to which my present state gave being, towards the feeling of already being in Barbados and viewing the world from that standpoint. He emphasized the importance of the state from which man views the world as he falls asleep. So it's going to be its whole separate video. Neville talks about, if you struggle to use your imagination to really stay solid in the state, because you can get into the state of, being in your wish fulfilled, but then if you go out into your world and you're like, oh my God, I'm not at the beach, or like say that it's trying to heal a relationship, and then you keep checking your phone and you're like, oh, they still haven't texted me. You keep wavering, you keep pulling yourself out of that state. So he says that's fine if you don't have the ability and the mental practice to be able to like shut that out, and that's going to be a whole other video, because I love the way that he talks about how to do that. He says that you can impress your subconscious mind further by entering a state of prayer or meditation. Like for me, when I do yoga, I get into a meditative state. If you can listen to like a classical music or like a lo-fi music, and just kind of a Zen state, where you're kind of zoned out. So right before you go to sleep, you want to feel like you're in bed in your little vacation home in Barbados, right? You want to feel like you're in bed with the love of your life, or you're in bed in the house of your dreams. You're in bed getting ready to go to your dream job the next day. So those are two other ways that you can help influence your subconscious mind, and I'm going to talk about all of this in other videos. I'm going to try and keep these ones shorter, easier to digest, because personally for me, this is a big book. I have the like entire collection here. I have only read a handful of pages, I would say, and I have really taken my time, like 2 at a time, digested them, started to practice them, started to see how I could change my practice to implement his teachings, to simplify things. I just have this greater understanding now. It's clarified my personal process. It's helped me see the importance of the steps and which ones I should emphasize versus, other ones. And yes. So basically he says, that night and for several nights thereafter, I fell asleep in the assumption that I was in my father's house in Barbados. Within a month, I received a letter from my brother saying that he had a strong desire to have the family together at Christmas, and he had enclosed a steamship ticket for Barbados. 2 days after I received this letter, I spent a wonderful winter in Barbados. So he says, this experience has convinced me that man can be anything he pleases if he will make the conception habitual and think from the end. It has also shown me that I can no longer excuse myself by placing the blame on the world of external things, that my good and my evil have no dependency except for myself, that it depends on the state from which I view the world, how things present themselves. So then he also says, a little bit down the page, the imaginative image is the only thing to seek. The ultimate purpose of imagination is to create in us the spirit of Jesus, which is continual forgiveness of sin, continual identification of man with his ideal. Only by identifying ourselves with our aim can we forgive ourselves for having missed it. All else is labor in vain. On this path to whatever place or state we convey our imagination, to that place or state we will gravitate physically also. Which then he goes on to talk about how, like, if he's imagining himself in his father's Barbados home, where I am assuming from the context that his brother was residing and then wanted to bring the whole family there, his brother was able to physically feel his presence in an energetic capacity. And so if you're like picturing yourself in someone's room all the time, they are going to be able to feel you there, is kind of what he is saying. But backing up, so he says that what I really found so interesting is that he talks about creating within us the spirit of Jesus, which is continual forgiveness of sin. And, growing up Catholic, you learn that, like, sin is doing bad things and that, you want to do good things, right? But what's been interesting reading his book is that he talks about sin as more the concept of maintaining a negative mental headspace, and that you are creating your own, negativity, and that is sinning. So you forgive yourself for having done that and release yourself from that through forgiveness, that it's okay if you do end up manifesting negativity because you found yourself in a negative headspace and you didn't pull yourself out of it. Forgive yourself and then don't continue to sin, which I like that concept of it way more than what I had learned, So I'm really excited to break down more pieces of this book, and I've only, I'm not even at page 100 yet, and I've actually just been flipping around through about 40 different pages. That's it. But I am so excited to start breaking things down. I want to make this like a whole part series because I can sit here and tell you guys my theories and my personal stories all that I want, and I still will do that, but like this is it right here. And I'm at a point in my life where I would like something more straightforward. It's been really fun experimenting, and I'm sure that I'll continue to do so within the context of what I'm learning, but I guess I don't want to keep causing, the undesirable things to the extent that I have been, and this really, for me, feels like a solution for that because there is so much clarity offered through his teachings. So the next part is going to be, because I've been wanting to do this as well, is like I meet people out in life and I tell them that, I make these videos about manifestation, and they're like, well, what's manifestation? I realize I don't think I've ever done a basics or this is what this is video. I've just dove into all the little pieces that I've wanted to. So my next one is going to be on Neville talking about what manifestation is in the sense of how our conscious and subconscious mind is creating reality and the relationship between the two. And I'm so excited for this video because it just I won't go into the tangent, but because it's going to be its own video, but I am so excited. Now, on a personal note, I am doing really well. If you guys have been following what's going on with my life, it's just been more recovery for me, and I'm just continuing to make progress. And then I had like other things unrelated to the accident that happened that were affecting my health, and of course it was manifested from a mental space. I was definitely stuck in a loop. Honestly, I was stuck in a very negative loop while also maintaining like a positive outlook, but keeping myself stuck in a pretty negative loop for the past several weeks. And over the past week or so, I really brought things to a head so that I could close out those cycles, not need, figure out what was keeping me stuck, and see it and finally be like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm done feeling this way. So I was able to bring that to a close. And that is when I was like, okay, it's time for Neville, because I have closed this major chapter in my life. And when I start this new one, I don't want to delay things any more than I have to. I don't want to cause myself any more negativity than I absolutely have to. So I really sought this clarity, and I just knew it was time to go ahead for this book. So I am going to leave it there. Please let me know how you guys are doing. I have missed you guys. As exhausted as I have been, I'm like, I want to come back to making videos, but I had no energy and no inspiration, and I just knew that it would come back when the time was right. So I hope you guys are doing well. Maybe you're going through something similar. I know the retrograde shadow period is starting, and that's when kind of everything hits the fan, and it's already happened for me. So I know what I'm going to be working on this retrograde, and maybe it's happening for you too. And this is perfect timing. We can kind of work through things together with Neville's teachings. But I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for tuning in.